In this section, we're going to work on a week at a glance. It's simply a tool used to communicate each week's expectations with families. Before we lean into this document, I thought it would be important to pause and think about the audience and the purpose. So, our audience is families, and our purpose is to clearly communicate 1 week's worth of expectations to them. And while reflecting on that and building out this document, there were a few questions that came to my mind. So, would a family with multiple teachers that support them be able to easily scan and digest the information? Now, we started looking at some different schedules, and some people laid their information out horizontally or vertically or clumped it by subject. And all alone, it was a great tool. But when you started putting these side by side and started thinking about families that had multiple students and those students having multiple teachers, it was really hard to read all of that information quickly at a glance. So, for that reason, we thought it would be best if we all used the same layout. How will they have access to this file? So you're going to share one link with your families, and we'll talk about some different ways you can do that. And they'll use that one link all year. All you'll need to do is copy a slide, update it, and they'll already have access. So let's go ahead and take a look. So first you're going to go to Google Classroom and open up the file called Week at a Glance, and it's automatically going to make a copy just for you. Now, I think it's helpful to see how all the parts fit together and then go back and do the details. So if we look at this Google slide, for a moment, let's just pretend there's only slides 1, 2, and 3. And you'll see that they're kind of ordered differently. So slide 3 says week 1, slide 2 says week 2, but slide 1 says week 3. So this should make sense in just a moment. Now, let's say I only want parents to see my schedule for week 1 while I work on weeks 2 and week 3. So week 3 has an eyeball on it, and that means that's going to be hidden when parents look at my slideshow. So if I also want to hide week 2, I can do a right click and skip the slide, and now it also has the eyeball. Now, normally when you share a presentation with somebody, they see this perspective where they see all the slides on the side and only one in the center until they hit present. But we're going to share this a little bit differently, and that's by going to File, then down to Publish to the Web. And under Link, you're going to click Publish. And then there's an OK button. And then that's going to give us a big long link. So we're going to copy that, and we'll open that in a new tab. Now, the first time I went here, it did say week 3, and that's because I forgot. It does take sometimes like a minute or 2 minutes for everything to sync. So just be aware when you make any changes in your slideshow, it does take about 2 minutes before that sync happens to the published version of your slideshow. But now when I go to that link, it only shows week 1. And even if I go down in the corner, it says I'm on slide 3, but there's no back button. I can't get to slides 1 or 2, but I can always move forward. So now let's go make a change. And let's say we're at the end of week 1 and I want to make week 2 visible for families. So I'm going to do a right click and uncheck skip slide. Now that we see how these parts fit together, let's go ahead and start building our first week at a glance. So now would be a great time to pause the video, go make your own copy of the template that was provided, and just explore the different slides that are within that file. Then come back and we'll look at how to set up a template. So I thought it would be best for you to make your own copy of this slideshow for 2 reasons. One, we're learning information all the time about what schedules are going to look like this fall. So as new information is shared, these templates are being updated. So even if you make a copy early on, you can always come back and copy one slide and put it into your own slide deck. And secondly, this isn't something you're turning into Google Classroom because you need to be the owner ongoing. So for that reason, make sure you made a copy of this slideshow and you can make adjustments and follow along. So just a little bit about the slide deck itself. I have an example based on the current draft of what a secondary schedule looks like and a current draft of what an elementary schedule looks like. Then this slide just has some logos that you can easily grab and paste to your own template, and then things like directions. So now let's pause and just look at one slide. So if we look here and if I click, you'll see a light blue outline, and that's because this is a table that's been added to the slide. It just makes it nice and neat and easy to organize. And then separately, there's these little logos that float above, and sometimes that can take a little bit of time with formatting, but I'll show some tricks here in just a moment. If you go to the top, this is a separate table for targets, assessments, and criteria. Then we have just a picture for the key for the different icons. And I think it's going to be really important to have the school listed, especially if a parent has 18 of these spread out and they're trying to figure out what school. Make sure you put your name here and the date. And if we scroll down just a touch, you'll see I have some extra icons. Anything you put around your slide is not visible by parents, and then you can easily drag and drop those on when you need them. And just note anything in the speaker notes a parent can get to through that published link. So just be mindful of what you place in speaker notes. So here, my suggestion would be to pause the video and just grab paper, pencil, post-its, and really play with your schedule there. It's a lot more forgiving, easier to edit, and I would just play with where do you want to do whole group versus small group work, and really play with that on paper and pencil. And then when you think you've solidified it a bit, then let's move into formatting. So to get started with my template, I'm just going to go down to the grade level that makes the most sense for me, right click, and duplicate slide. Next, just drag that slide up to position number 1. And the templates and tools and anything below that, I would do the skip slide feature. That way these older versions are here and available for you, but they're still hidden from parents. Now, what I do think will work for most people is to simply click on a cell and make some adjustments. So in this elementary example, I'm going to change instructional block 1 to math. Here I could type out some information. So now you'll notice when I kept typing, it moved my cell, and here my icons are kind of in the wrong spot, but I have a lot of blank space, so I'm going to go ahead and delete, and that took care of my problem. Now, if I had something due this day, I could also grab that inbox picture, copy it, and paste it. I'm going to drag it up here. So this is a pretty big icon, so I'm going to drag it from the corner and shrink it down a little bit. So now I don't really like where the location of that is. And if you click on an icon, you can easily move them with the arrow keys on your keyboard. So I'm going to move it up and over. And if you're somebody that likes to adjust things really specifically, if you are on an icon and you hold the shift key down while you use the arrows, that's where you can nudge things around just a little bit to get it just so. So again, you can use the arrows to move things, but the shift and the arrows is how to nudge them into place. So next we're going to look at how to group and ungroup objects. I tried to take out as much of the tedious part of this as I could for you, so you'll notice that these are already little grouped objects. So let's say every morning for my morning circle, I want 3 kids to share. So I hit enter, I add a third kiddo slot, and my icons are now moved. So if I click on these little clocks, you can see I can bring them all down at once because they're grouped. And my little yoga people, I can bring them down at the same time. So that's because, again, these are already grouped. And if I want to ungroup them, I can click on Arrange and Ungroup. And now they are independent of each other. So if you have a different schedule, you can move the right icons into place and then you can group your own. So let's say I get all of these exactly where I want them. I've nudged them into place using the shift arrow, and now I can group them again. So I'm going to click on my first little fella here. I'm going to hold the shift key, and while I'm holding the shift key, I can click on multiple icons, go to arrange, and group. That way, if I decide I want 4 kids or 5 kids one day, all I do is drag and drop these and they stick together. So next we're going to look at some of the formatting options you have within the table itself. So maybe you don't want to have any students sharing. I can highlight this, then I can right click and delete the row. But maybe I want the daily morning meeting to not be that kind of shaded color. I can highlight this. That's going to be changed with the little bucket up above, and I can make that transparent. Now I did indent the text so that there was room for icons, but if you need to make any changes to those, you can always highlight a cell or a group of cells, right click, go to formatting options, and that's where the left indent is turned on to 0.4, and you can make adjustments there. So you can see it does take a little bit of time to get it just right. So I would make sure to start with paper and pencil, and then also check in with your building to see if there's been any changes to what the schedule is going to be in the fall. And also remember this, it's a little bit of an investment because then you can use this week after week. So I thought I could show you one more option, and that's to get everything just the way you want it. Take a screenshot, make the screenshot your background so nothing gets shuffled around, and then you can simply add text through a text box. So I'll show that now. So let's say this is just the way that I want it, and I'm ready to make this image my background. I'm going to open the snipping tool. And if I don't have the snipping tool here already, I can just go down to the lower left corner and type snip. It's going to open up the app, and I'm going to click on New. So now my screen's a little gray. I'm going to go to that top corner. I'm going to click with my left hand, and with my right hand, I'm going to drag and drop to that. I'm just going to drag to that bottom corner and then let go. And I need to save this. So I just want to look before I hit save that this is on my PC in the folder called Pictures, and I'm going to name it Background Save. And now I can go to Slide, New Slide. I'm going to get rid of these text boxes. Now I'm not going to insert a picture, but instead I want to go to Slide, Change Background, and I'm going to choose my image for my background, upload it from my computer. And if I remember, this was in Pictures, and here's background. So I'm going to go ahead and open. So now that picture is the background for my slide, and nothing's going to move around. So now that I have my background, I'm going to go to text box, and I can simply layer a text box over the top, and here's where I can put my targets, and also add a text box for my name and the week, and I could simply add text boxes down below. So this gives you a few different options. You can either type in the table itself or make it a background once you have it just so and add layers of text boxes, but it still gives some consistency to families. And in Module 10, they'll talk about some different ideas of what should be included those first 2 or 3 weeks of class.